Alright, let's do this.
There's only a zombie in a slime. What are you doing?
No! Alright, we're still low, but we can survive this. God damn it! Come on. Chat, I'm literally sweating my tits off. Chat. What are those two
So I decided one day I wanted to play all of Calamity Mod and cram it all into one video. So of course we started up our Twitch stream, and to add a little bit more spice, we decided to go with expert mode as well. If you want more of these kinds of videos where I'm playing through everything over its entirety, make sure to leave a comment down below and go follow the Twitch, because that's where we'll be recording them. Also make sure to stick around to the end of the video because there is a very special announcement. Started off our playthrough by creating the character with our tradition of hitting the random button continuously until we came across our little green boy.
and named him accordingly.
Also, there's these little bonus mods that we have added into our playthrough as well as thorium. I'm not going to focus on thorium, but it is just there in the background for those who are asking.
So it was finally time to create our world.
Upon spawning in, we scrapped the Revengeance and Iron Heart straight away. Those of you who don't know, these items will make the game even harder than expert mode, so I'm gonna leave that
For now.
We opened up our starting bag loaded with many items, including a squirrel. He does not have a name. What a dumb squirrel. We started our journey by heading off to the right side and fighting Calamity's first enemy type, Orb, which almost actually killed us. Thankfully, we were actually slightly better than a goddamn orb.
The death of the orb, we continued our journey towards the right side of the map.
With hope in our eyes as we discovered a chest, what brand new modded items were we about to
We then continued our trend of finding the worst loot ever.
Are you serious?
Our terrible chest findings were also interrupted by a worm who was not having it at all. We had traveled towards the left side of the map to find a snow biome, which contained another underground chest with a totally modded item inside.
We continued down into the icy depths where we discovered another underground house
Except this time the chest was in an unusual position.
and was guarded by many a mob.
And after many epic battles, we were handsomely rewarded with...
Left in pure misery, we headed to spawn to start very early work on a elevator.
Until Old Mate Expert Mode induced a brand new mechanic called...
Dying to a goddamn slime.
Afterwards, we spent about 20 or so minutes mining in the caves.
And trying my Boy Scout's best not to die.
We then returned to the surface to make a makeshift crafting station and trying to use the materials we gained to make some armor.
We created 2 pieces of silver armor and then went back down into the mines to gain just that little bit more that would help us out.
This took about 30 minutes, but luckily we obtained a little bug boy to help us out with our journey. After gaining enough resources, we were finally ready to build a house to contain all our NPCs.
Now, I'm going to give you 3 options to guess what kind of house that I... If you guessed pee-pee house, then you would be predictable. And so was I. Once the house was finished, we headed down into the mines one last time to get the necessary resources we needed to create the rest of our armor and materials that were needed for our first boss fight. After about a solid 20 minutes of mining and exploring the depths, we obtained the Platinum Aegis, which is our first proper item from Calamity. This item just gives us defense, and a lot of it.
We also crafted the silver chest plate to give us even more defense. When we were finally prepared to verse Old Mate Eyeball, a blood moon occurred, so we had to deal with that little pain in the arsehole.
Afterwards, during the day, we traveled to the complete right-hand side of the map, going to the Crimson to obtain another weapon by smashing the blood orbs.
That is right, we found the one, the only.
We then headed home and waited for the arms dealer to arrive, which he then did.
Whilst waiting for nighttime to occur, we prepared for the big fight and also expanded the PP by just a tad.
By that time, night had hit and we had finished the expansion and were finishing off our little setup to verse Old Mate Eyeball, which actually went as easy as you would expect. Even expert mode is way too easy for the eyeball. I was even using a goddamn snowball cannon.
But of course that Old Mate Eye had to screw me over another way.
Because when we killed it, all the loot was underground. It's not bad, it's just on that line of annoying and inconvenience. When day arrived, we got extremely lucky as the goblin army arrived. When I say lucky, I mean obviously because because we have a chance now to find the Goblin Tinkerer very early on in the game. Whilst the Goblin Army is going on in the background, I want to mention a new mechanic that was added in Calamity. That being when you use a certain class of weapon, that being melee, range, etc.
From enough kills, you can actually level up that attack power of the class of weapon.
I just thought it was a little of addition and let you guys know. After beating the Goblin Army,
We finally got to face our first Calamity boss, the King Slime.
which went as easy as you would expect. But finally, after 3.5 hours of gameplay, we headed towards the left side of the map and began the acid rain encounter. Honestly, this was just some good casual fun, shooting some nuclear corrupted enemies. I mean, hey, just listen to this music.
You're listening to Acid Rain Radio, the only radio show that is not tripping on acid, because that would be illegal, Mr. Officer. Right now, we are shooting a gun at many enemies. I mean, look at that thing. Is that a frog or a peppermint back to Elppa in the studio?
Thank you, Elppa. So since our game was in expert mode, I couldn't just willy-nilly rush into a boss fight. So I had to create an old-time favorite of the channel, that being I started at the dungeon and ended up on the edge of the ice biome right next to spawn. So to say that the wooden platform was long would be an understatement. I then headed back towards the mines yet again to get some more heart crystals and see what other loot was down there, because yeah. We kept going till we maxed out our basic hearts. We also found this new lava-themed chest,
But none of them really had anything interesting in sight.
I dare say the most amazing item in this entire game. It just turns me into this lava worm thingamajig, and I am loving every second of it.
But enough fooling around. It's now finally time for our first Calamity boss.
That being the Desert Scourge. The Desert... Big Worm!
This gigantic worm turd can only be summoned in the desert.
But of course, yet again, my monkey brain kicked in, as somehow we decided that we were fighting the boss with no potions. And to make matters worse, as soon as the fight started, we fell off our long platform. So after struggling on the ground, we finally made our way back up to the platform. Our health was going down. Were we gonna make it? The worm turd was getting faster and faster. Legit 14 HP! How are we still alive? One more bullet to penetrate this motherfucker's skull! Get out of here! Didn't even break a sweat. After defeating our first Calamity boss, we headed straight to another one. This time it was more of a mini boss. The name of said boss was called Giant Clam. As its name entails, this thing is just a big ass clam. This boss naturally spawns as an enemy in a new biome that's below the underground desert called the Sunken Sea. Also, side note, the Desert Scourge drops an item in expert mode that basically just allows you to breathe underwater, which made exploring this new domain very easy. After a few new minutes of looking around, we found the crustacean
And just began spraying our enemy with bullets.
which, like, don't get me wrong, I also wouldn't be so happy if some jackass started spraying me with over 30 trillion bullets. Nothing really interesting about this fight, especially since the clam just teleports and then tries to smash you harder than a slab of concrete that's into BDSM. When you kill the clam, it drops a new NPC.
Which will be extremely useful later on.
Continuing on the Calamity boss rush, we decided to go up against Giant Crab.
This boss can only be summoned in the underground mushroom biome. At the start of the fight, I was still very confident that I could beat him.
Oh, this platform would be enough.
It was not enough.
I also forgot to apply my potions until halfway throughout the fight. We came back to the scene of the crime and decided to flesh it out a tad more.
And now it was time for a rematch. Sure, the space was tiny and we took a bit of damage here and there, but in comparison to what we were versing last time,
It became infinitely easier to actually face and shoot the boss without worrying about getting a fungal infection. And so the giant crab
was defeated and we headed home to indulge in its spoils.
Afterwards, we headed over to the jungle. For the most part, it remains unchanged, so nothing interesting will happen here. After about 30 odd minutes of looking around the jungle, we arrived home and crafted the Blade of Grass, which also happened to be a godly variant. No complaints here. Because we looted the jungle so much, we obtained contained a significant amount of grav potions. So then we decided to make our way into the sky and explored the new orbs that inhabited the land. These would have heart crystals and chests and just ores surrounding them. So if I knew about them earlier on, I would have definitely utilized them way more. Speaking of useful, the Calamity mod introduces a brand new mechanic which basically allows the player to craft accessories. So with that in mind, we crafted the lightning boots as we desperately needed an upgrade to our movement.
Maybe that's because we're about to battle a few more bosses.
After, I kid you not,
6 hours.
we finally decided to verse the brain of Cthulhu.
Even in my master mode playthrough, it only took me like 4 hours.
We of course beat the brain because of our long platform, considering it's taken us a lot of time, and I realize we've actually done a lot in comparison of exploring this modded world. It was time that we expanded the PP and gathered even more NPCs.
With that out of the way, it was time again for another Calamity boss.
Because we were in a Crimson world, we were up against the The umbrella is actually unique to the Crimson world, and it's even more unique because it's annoying beyond all comprehension. As you fight the boss, it summons big fleshy ass worms, which get bigger and bigger as the time goes on, until you finally encounter this big, and I mean big ass worm. And to make matters worse, you cannot kill the umbrella until the worm is defeated. So I began running along the big platform so that we can kill the big worm, so then we can beat this goddamn big ass flesh umbrella. Since it was daytime, our next boss was old mate Skellybelly. We headed straight to hell with our legit ocean of water behind us to make up for time. When we reached the depths of our world, we headed straight back to the surface, grabbed a few items to head off to fight old mate Skellybelly. The defeat was that of ease, and we headed into the dungeon to discover the new enemies and potential loot down below. But nothing was really of interest besides my boy making a big grand return. That is right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Big Q! We headed home, and for some reason a goblin army was there again. After that little inconvenience, we headed straight down into the depths of hell to start our long platform.
Hell Edition.
But what was really interesting, and I'm not sure if this was a mechanic or not, we got like 8 voodoo demons to spawn in the span of like 6 minutes. I literally had to go to the surface because my inventory was full of goddamn guide voodoo. I was like, what? We headed back down into hell to continue mine. Are you serious? Another goddamn... After that reoccurring nightmare, we made the Night's Edge and continue our journey into hell, and just really lengthening our long hell platform. Oh yeah, and this happened.
Oh, so satisfying. Shit.
Which went as well as you expected. And just in case that little situation wouldn't happen again,
To pick up the grand counter to the War of Flesh, the Water Book.
when we headed home, we then realized, oh, we haven't killed Queen Bee quite yet. And oh yes, I thought it would be easy and we would not struggle and we would not die to the boss. We tried versing Queen Bee yet again, and this time we just built a fetus version of long platform. When you actually do like some form of preparation,
It actually works out pretty well.
afterwards, before our next set of boss rush,
We took some downtime and worked on increasing our PP's length and creating a magical storage system.
those of you who don't know what this mod is, you store things in this little pixel. It's basically like the ME system from Minecraft. If you don't know what that is, well, it's basically a big-ass storage system. But with those things out of the way, it was time to battle the Slime God, the last pre-hard mode Calamity boss. And this boss has, without a doubt, the coolest theme song so far.
Editing me. Play the track.
This boss has 3 components: the Crimson Slime, the Corruption Slime,
And Orb.
The orb will possess either one of them and make them a literal demon, as they will summon orbs and slimes to fight for them. The entire fight, I was just using the mini shark, and chat said I could not do it. Chat said, you died to a Queen Bee. What is the chance that you defeat this thing? And I said, no, chat. Like the Slime God, I am a deity among men, and I will destroy this colorized yin and yang. And guess what?
We did it, you suckers!
After defeating the boss, we were then able to craft the new strongest pre-hard mode armor, the Statigel armor. But we crafted the range armor because of the new Calamity weapon that we were going to try and craft. First item that we will need to obtain is obtained from our bestie, the Queen Bee. That item being the bee's knees.
Then we needed to craft the molten bow.
Then finally, combine them all together at a demon altar to craft the Lunarian bow, which is just a bow that shoots lasers. So now we were finally ready to battle the Wall of Flame. We got the weapon, we got the armor, we got a bleeding asshole, and we were ready. And crikey, did we over-prepare. Because look at that 12,000 damage.
More like 12 reasons you died, you dumb sack of flesh.
And with that, our game entered hard mode. What I like to call almost not quite really hard mode for Calamity just yet, buddy. You have no idea what is in store. So we headed to the surface and we were met with some brand new enemies who just look like a Chinese bootleg Pac-Man. Once the night ends, we opened up our loot and got a bunch of new items. The first significant item was a demon heart, which just gave us an extra accessory slot. We also gained a new minion, which is literally just a fighter jet. But now it's time for Terraria's favorite game show called
I gotta smash all the altars and then mine the dumbass ores because this is a dumbass progression bit that you have to do.
We interrupt this program for a brand new show called
I'm actually going to get enough materials needed for the Onyx Blaster, but I also made a Palladium pickaxe during the process because people...
So if you didn't get all that, we finally created the gun called the Onyx Blaster.
And do you know what also was created? When I mean created, I mean randomly spawned in the world. We teleported home to get away from the destroyer. Finally, a safe place from the world's dangers. The worst encounter finally out of our way, we headed back into the mines to gather titanium, so we could actually stand a chance when old mate Mechaworm decides to spawn in again. So let me just get all the titanium needed to craft a full set of armor. So to enact our revenge, we also needed to get the Daedalus Stormbow, and to quote myself, I am going to ram this bow so far up that worm's ass, its head will look like a rhombus. Luckily, after killing the Hallowed Mimic for the first time, we actually got the Daedalus Stormbow.
But it would be nothing without holy arrows.
So we had to go to the Hallowed biome to farm pixies and unicorns. We could actually craft the arrows needed. Finally, it was time to enact our revenge. Clocking in at a whopping 120,000 health points, it was no match for Sparkly Bone and went down in about like 2 or so minutes. With our temporary rival defeated, we decided to celebrate by building more size to the PB house. Also, since the destroyer was defeated, we needed to gain some shark fins so we could craft the mega shark and take on a little more bosses. Whilst we were farming, we also made a pit stop to the jungle and bought the leaf wings from the witch doctor. I finally actually had some proper aerial movement that weren't the Spectre boots. When we finally gained 5 fins, we headed home and actually forgot to purchase some illegal gun parts from the arms dealer, so I just had to wait to nighttime. To make up for lost time, we headed into the underground Hallowed biome to farm some souls and prepare to summon for the upcoming bosses. When nighttime fell, we crafted the Mega Shark and also the Cryo Key to go up against our first Calamity hard mode boss, which went as well as you expect because Monkey Brain was back yet again.
I was like, duh, Cryogen was like 1,000
To fill the empty hole that now layers my heart, I had to go up a boss I knew was guaranteed to defeat. And that boss, my dear friend, goes by the name of Skeletron Prime. And guess what? We actually defeated old mate. With the rise of happiness I had obtained, I decided to go up against Cryogen yet again, and to see if I could actually now defeat him. You see, Cryogen is actually an ice cube.
And I do not know how we died to an ice cube the first time,
because we absolutely shattered the ice cube the second time. With those 3 bosses defeated, we were able to make a quick upgrade to our armor set and craft the Hallow armor. Along the way, we also crafted an item from Calamity called the Cosmolite, which basically, when used, can turn day into night and vice versa. So with that, we took a quick break from killing bosses
to kill the twins.
I kid you not, I was actually way faster than the twins, so they despawned, which is now my new favorite mechanic in all of Terraria. Using the spare time in between getting another summoner for the twins, we went back to making a new Calamity accessory, which is called the Deific Amulet. Taking damage makes you move very fast for a short amount of time, causing stars to fall and increase immune time when damaged. Increase armor penetration by and reduces. To truly show you the power of Calamity, I'm just gonna say this thing ain't even close to its final form. We rematched the twins and obviously zero sweats were broken. With the twins defeated, we were finally able to make a new accessory that drastically improves our boots, titled the Angel Thread. Though these do not replace our wings yet, but they will play a significant part in crafting roles in the future. Since we may have missed out on a few bosses from Calamity Mode, we decided to fight one, which being the Aquatic Skirt. But whilst getting items to summon the boss, a solar eclipse occurred, giving us the opportunity to try and get a few broken hero swords amongst other items. And unfortunately, we only got one to drop, even though we killed like 30 Mothrons. This game sucks. Moving on. We got the materials we needed to craft and summon the next boss, and we headed off to the Aquatic Seas, which is now the place where we can only summon the boss. Yet again, Calamity will present us with another worm for us to defeat. The Aquatic Scourge will fly around, fart, shoot death needles, and just wander after you passively. He's like that one serial killer that will always wander after the main character, but somehow manage to catch up even though the main character is sprinting like an Olympian.
Why are you running?
Luckily, since I'm an absolute god among men, we defeated the water worm without giving a single care in the world. After that, another tier of acid rain occurred, this time with some mini bosses, but more importantly, we got to jam out to the grooviest of tunes. After defeating the event, we made an effort to try and upgrade our armor. This process did take a while, as whilst mining, we went after life fruits, turtle shells, and
Trying to survive this hellish biome, I hate it with a burning passion.
because poison is the actual worst debuff, I decided with Chant that we should craft the Ankh Shield. So for about 10 or so minutes, we crafted the extra accessories we needed to craft the Ankh Shield. Then we head back to the jungle to mine yet again, which it was finally worth it as we had tamed a full set of turtle armor.
Also, we got enough life fruits to get max life.
With our huge leap and advancements, I decided it was time yet again for another Calamity boss.
This boss, who will take the cake or several bullets,
Is known as the Brimstone Elemental in a new hell sub-biome on the left side of the map, which in this biome, little demons like to spawn that look somewhat similar to the logo of Calamity. I wonder if that means anything. The Brimstone Elemental is a slightly annoying fight, as this little swine will teleport around from time to time and shoot period blood at you. And if you actually get hit, you get so disgusted that your health will disappear faster than me getting off the internet after making that shitty comparison. She also has this cute little mechanic where she goes somewhat immune and shoots relatively fast projectiles that, well, they hurt. But if you can manage to get past all of that, like myself, and the fight was won. Hey, remember those enemies from the Brimstone bio were blah 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 foreshadowing blah blah blah? Oh, this is what I was foreshadowing! Because, ladies and gentlemen, it was finally time for me to go up against Calamitous. Wait, like the boss that this mod is named after?
No!
Oh, yes, but, this is, not its final form.
This is like baby mode for what we have left to battle. But anyways, let me welcome you to the fight between Calamitous and Dumbass. You see, at the start of the fight, it all goes vanilla boss music. It seems alright until you get her down to 80% HP. And that's when she's like, "Ice, it's real gamer hours," and slaps on her theme and goes back to 100%. Throughout the fight, she will shoot lasers and red orbs, which both apply that annoying debuff that the Brimstone Elemental applied to you earlier. As the fight continues, she will summon her grabby hands one by one, which is doable. You know, you can live through it. What's next? A bunch of mini-yous that surround you. I'm sure that's annoying, but it's defeatable. Okay, down to 10% HP. The fight has been pretty... Oh, there are now 2 grabby hands. I take back every word in the English dictionary. It may seem easy. That's because I got my sexy-ass unicorn to carry my ass. But if we want to look at the previous attempt, yeah, it didn't go well for Mr. Old Mate me. Luckily, since we had the unicorn second times round, we shot our bullets and defeated the almost not really main boss of Calamity. Round 2 of this boss is when she is an actual god, and we will be fighting her at the end of the video. And oh boy, I do look forward to pounding her ass. Wait. With Calamitous defeated, we headed back to the jungle to take on Old Meat Plant. Now, considering this was expert mode, you'd think that a simple-minded Aussie dumbass would make an arena to deal with the— Well, you answered wrong, because I broke that bulb like a psychopath.
You know, I actually beated it. Beated it? The English language sucks.
Point being, we beat the plants, and if you don't believe me, well, now you should. With Plantera defeated, we crafted the Terra Edge, which is like the Terra Blade, but also isn't. I'm not really sure what the difference is between the two, but it was new, and my monkey brain wanted the new shiny thing. But before we went and fought Golem and all the 3 or so other Calamity bosses in between, realizes that we need a bit more of our upgrade to our item. So I created a teleporter to the left side of the map of the ocean, that being the Acidic Sea. Because the cool thing about Terraria Calamity is below the Acidic Sea
is a completely brand new biome that we'll get back to later.
So after about 20 minutes or so of back and forth of us buying expensive wires and finally creating a teleporter towards the left side of the map, and you're probably wondering what the reason behind me actually doing a teleportation system towards there. Well, I shall explain that later on, because apparently my brain was extremely indecisive and decided to go gain a new Calamity accessory, which is basically an upgraded version of the Ankh Shield called the Asgar's Valor. Basically, gave me some more health, gave me some more nerd stats, and was really good. We made our way into the jungle temple, which, yes,
it did take a while to find. Please laugh at my suffering.
Thank you. When finding the temple, we immediately went inside and killed the world's government. Disarmed all the traps on our way to the boss room. We then made, I dare say, the tiniest arena and killed the golem, because it's the golem and he's just a massive puss. Luckily, when we killed the golem, we got the pick source, so we did not have to battle the Aztec Lego character yet again. If you did notice, there says there has been a plague that has been before in the jungle, which we'll get back to later on. When we headed home, we also crafted the vanilla beetle armor to become even stronger and make our way towards the vanilla endgame. Now, getting back to the reason why we created the teleporter to the Acidic Sea. If you recall your feeble brains to the start of the video, where I killed the big clam and an NPC dropped. This NPC, when talked to, will give you a selection titled Help. When selected, a bubble will encase you. Basically, when you have this bubble buff around you, you are alive. And when you don't, you have the opposite of what is alive.
And the reason for me making this teleporter,
it's just an easier way to get to the abyss. Because if you get at least 1 damage counter,
if something at least sneezes on you,
the bubble will disappear. So when the bubble disappears, you gotta go all the way back to Aquaman and talk to him again and get the bubble again to go back to the abyss, go and explore the abyss. When you're down actually in the abyss, not getting touched by any enemy, there's a few items that you want to keep your eye out for. First being Scoria, which has this cute little mechanic where it drops little thingies that does damage you. The other is a plant-like ore called Tenebris. It blends in so well with the walls that you have to look like a grandma using an iPad when you're trying to look for it. And I hear you asking, why not use a Spelunky potion to try and find where it is?
Spelunkies don't work on it. So, yeah, the abyss sucks.
So when we got home, it's now for what we call crafting time. The first thing we crafted was the Fire Gauntlet, which now requires Scoria.
Why would you change it, Calamity?
Next, we crafted the Calamity upgraded version of the Master Ninja gear, which is called the Ninja Belt. Basically, it just adds some extra jump height, as well as the Ninja gear's previous ability. Next, it's time to work towards the pre-Moonlord armor set, known as the Hydrothermic armor, which you guessed it, is made out of Scoria. Also, a Chaos Core, which is crafted with Endoplasm and an Essence of Chaos, which is a very common crafting item for mid to late game Calamity. I know this is a lot, but bear with me.
We crafted the full set of Hydrothermic armor,
and also their wings, which is called the Haydale Mantle, which is kind of funny because we just made the Beetle armor, and now we're just like, nah. We also made a brand new sword called the Ark of the Ancients, but just like any infomercial, I'm not done yet, because we had to craft a sword known as the True Ark of Ancients, which is made from very fun to obtain items. And then finally, this is what we obtained. May seem a little underwhelming, but after all that little crafting spiel, it's time to go for a few more bosses. And what a great way to celebrate is to fight this sexy mermaid waifu.
Damn, girl.
You're so sexy.
Wait, why do I hear boss music?
Oh, hello! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Leviathan. Leviathan is quite literally the fat bastard in this hentai, as he is a giant asshole who just sits around doing nothing, whilst the sexy lady does all the work. Because of course we defeated him with ease. Though, speaking of sexy ladies, I believe it is time for the greatest grind to ever occur. For those of you who don't know this mod, there is an item that you can only obtain in Calamity Expert mode, and that item is known as the Elemental Heart. Now, I won't spoil what it does, but let's just say it is definitely worth the grind. The first stage of this is trying to get 2 items from the enemy, the Sand Elemental. These only spawn during sandstorms, so we need to spawn in a sandstorm. Luckily, there's an item for that in Calamity called the Arid Artifact. Combined with a Zerg potion, which is basically a battle potion on crack, you are ready to farm. And farm we did, because the Expert mode drop for the Sand Elemental, I kid you not when I say this, took us 1.5 goddamn actual living. We lived this hours. I think we'll get back to the grinding for the Heart of Elementals a little later, because this physically hurt me. We took a short break from that absolute grind to go and fight the Lunar Cultists, and they were as easy as you would expect. We also destroyed the Solar Pillar just for the sheer reason that I wanted to obtain the Solar Eruption, but I thought, hey, why not actually fight something that is somewhat of a challenge, or even something I have not fought before? That, ladies and gentlemen, is where my good friend Astrum The cool thing about this boss is that he's in a new biome called the Astral Infection. This biome comes with hard mode and is a really nice design. But back to the boss. Basically, he's just a giant space. And when I say it was going to be hard, that is a brutal lie. Besides a few hits that he did on me, we basically was just bobbing and weaving around his attacks and destroyed the space. Now for the next boss. Basically, the only real boss that required some form of skill. Astrum Duis. A giant space worm that just splits into 2 space worms when at half health. This boss has given me every goddamn STI under God's yellow sun because it keeps ramming me in the asshole. Imagine for a second the Destroyer, but it was also 10 times faster than Destroyer, but also dealt 10 times more damage than the Destroyer. And when you get hit with this debuff, your health goes down rapidly. And top it all off, there's 2 of them and... But for all the veteran players of Calamity, I hear you say, well,
you just gotta kill one.
You are right. You kill yourself. Because this boss has a fun little mechanic where they will constantly switch. And there is a way to tell the difference between the 2. Basically, you gotta memorize every single goddamn hexadecimal code distinguished between the 2 bosses. What I'm trying to say is, we died to this boss a lot. The first attempt of the boss did not go well at all. The second attempt actually went worse somehow. So attempt number 3 went a little better, as we got one of the 2 worms down to half HP, but again. So attempt number 4. Realizing the absolute speed it has on me, I remembered an item called the Chaos Rod. The only problem is, my luck is the worst thing ever. So about after an hour of grinding, we did not even get the item. So I said, screw it. We will fight the boss again. And we would so... Attempt number 5. Attempt 6 and 7 sucked dick. Attempt 8, we realized that we might need to beef up our character a tad more. So we went out and got the item called the Miracle Fruit. Basically, this item increases your max health beyond the max health of 500. We got another item that increases our permanent max life. This item is called the Blood Orange. Now makes our total life 590. With this, surely we could defeat... We are literally going backwards in progress. Attempt 9 and 10, I just want to cry. Okay, attempt 11, I realized that we are in the double digits and I had to do something to change it. The main thing that is killing me is their speed over me, so we need some form of item to counteract their speed. Luckily, there is a block called Asphalt, which basically just turns you into an Olympic runner. Hence, Long Platform 2.0 was created, and we were ready to beat the boss for the 11th... Jesus, 11th time. For the 11th time, and let's just say the boss could not touch us. We literally had to slow down. We were going that fast. So to say that we defeated the boss, we defeated the boss. Thank God we defeated the boss. The Space Worm defeated, it was now time to craft a new upgraded sword of the Terror Blade. I suck at pronunciating words. The tomato is what happens if you inject the Terra Blade with literal black tar heroin. But the speed and the pure quantity of projectiles does not stop there, because these all track your enemy. To prove how strong this abomination is, we went up against a boss called the Ravager. Speaking of black tar heroin, this boss is like Golem on crack. We did struggle towards the end of the fight, which the fight lasted almost 5 whole minutes, but we were victorious within the end. And with that, I believe that this was all the pre-Moonlord bosses defeated. I'm 90% sure that we do not have to kill any more bosses. I swear. With that, we went to the final pillar that we had left alive, and it was time for the Moonlord, the final boss in vanilla Terraria. And since it was expert mode, I said, screw it.
And then we went up against the beast with absolutely no potions. Now this is where real calamity kicks in.
Since we killed the Moonlord, we get another inventory slot.
Next we have some Luminite from Old Mate Moondaddy. We now get to craft some new materials. Our true Ark of the Ancients now gets an upgrade into something called the Ark of the Elements.
And she does a fair bit more damage, let me tell ya.
You're also probably wondering
What this rainbow ore is. This stuff is called Life Alloy.
it's basically made up of 3 new ores. There's 2 you shouldn't really care about,
And the third one, that is
goddamn scoria! We also made a brand new item called the Seraph Traces, which combine both your boots and your wings together.
Since we also had a new accessory slot
It was finally time to grind yet again.
for the heart of the elements that I had mentioned earlier. The first item was
Was dropped from Old Mate Cryogen.
the item that we were trying to obtain has a 10% drop chance, so after a few kills we ended up getting the Cryo Stone. The next item we had to obtain was a drop from the Cloud Elemental, which only spawns in the sky during a rainstorm. Since rainstorms are relatively rare,
Unless you don't want them to occur.
Calamity has got you covered with an item called a Torrent Tier. When activated, it will cause the game to rain. I kid you not, the first Cloud Elemental we encountered dropped the item we needed. Why couldn't that be like with the Sand Elemental? Next, we had to kill the Leviathan yet again for it to drop an item called the Pearl of Enthrallment.
Quite like the Ice Cube, only a few kills were actually needed for it to drop its item.
Our next item, yes, I know it's a lot, but just bear with me,
Is known as the Rose Stone.
which is from the Brimstone Elemental.
Yet again, only a few kills were needed for the item to drop.
Next was a bit of a blast from the very big past, as we had to get an item from the Desert Scourge. I still cannot pronounce the goddamn name. Let's say quick and easy were the main words I'd use to describe what went down. Now, the final boss we needed an item from is called the Plague Bringer Goliath, also known as the one boss I completely forgot about.
If you remember the message that was displayed after we defeated Golem, this is the boss responsible for it.
Let me just play that theme for you. Plague Bringer Goliath, also known as Big Ass Metal B, is one fast boss. I dare say faster than who shall not be named.
There is a lot more movement needed alongside quick and fast thinking during this boss fight.
Luckily, since I had post-Moonlord items and weapons, this was made relatively easy, though we did have potions just in case.
Luckily for us, killing that boss, we got our item first try. And now we had finally obtained the Heart of Elements. Boys, gamers, allow me to introduce you to the greatest gift that has ever been bestowed upon us. Okay, jokes aside, this is actually a very helpful item, so let's keep going.
Now, with Calamity, when you defeat the Moonlord, you'll run into these. I'm not really sure what they are, but they're a new enemy type that have a lot of health and do a decent amount of damage. When you kill enough of them, you gain enough of their material, you'll be able to summon the Profaned Guardians, or as the Calamity community likes to call them, the Chicken Nuggets. What kind of chicken nuggets have you been putting in your body? What the real challenge is the item you get from them after defeating them, but you'll find out what that is in just a second. Next boss on the list that we just had to fight because it was there is a jungle dragon called Dragon Folly. This ain't even the best jungle dragon that we'll battle. Nothing really interesting to say about this boss except that it traps you in this certain area with these penis-looking beams on each side.
Basically, it's just a lightning bird that just goes brrr. When we defeated the bird, it actually didn't drop us anything interesting.
Now, going back to the boss drop that we obtained from the...
Hold on. We need a new song. We crafted an item called the Profaned Core.
which when used in the hallowed biome, you summoned one of the hardest bosses in Terraria Calamity.
Providence.
She is an absolute unit that will ruin every aspect of your day. Now, a few cute little mechanics that Providence has, one being that when summoned, you instantly get a debuff that reduces your flight time. If you get too far away from the boss, you instantly die. It's the act of actually touching her little cum bullets is what will damage you. When you get hit by one of them, it is a guaranteed 100 damage. So she can be a little bit strong.
After a few attempts of going up against her and mastering her mechanics, we then found the strength to defeat this flying beehive and claimed victory.
We're also assisted by a new item called the Normality Relocator.
Basically just the Calamity version of the Rod of Discord, but even better.
With the death of Providence, we were also able to craft a whole new array of items. The first being Yarum's Insignia, which basically just buffs our melee damage tenfold. We also made a new melee weapon, which is an upgraded version of the Solar Eruption called the Morning Star.
This weapon is the result of the solar eruption going through their glow-up phase.
To create a new set of armor though, we needed to obtain a new ore to combine with Providence material drop. That new ore was in the jungle called Yui Bloom. When arriving home, we also realized that we could increase our HP yet again by crafting an item known as the Elderberry. After we crafted all those new items, we would not actually have any of the Providence ore left to craft the brand new armor. So we use another cheeky little Calamity mechanic where if you are in expert mode, you can go up to an NPC that sells boss loot bags from each boss that you've killed before. And quite frankly, I don't want to go up against Providence again.
Like with all loot boxes, we did not have enough money to purchase it.
One little thing we used to counter this is we bought a lot of aquatic scourge summoners to farm that thing over and over again. So finally, after all that, we were able to craft a set of the Tarragon armor. Basically, this gave us a massive boost in damage, defense, and health. The next 3 sets of bosses that we face are kind of like disciples for a stronger boss.
They include the Ceaseless Void,
A boss that can only be fought in the dungeon, another space worm.
but unlike the other one, this fight was made extremely easy thanks to Long Platform 2.0.
And finally, you have Cygnus, which can be fought only in hell.
Out of the 3, this one was definitely the hardest, but still, we beat him with ease. Since we defeated all these 3 mini-bosses, you would think it was time to verse the Granddaddy boss. There was still one other boss we had to go up against, secluded from the other 4.
Firstly, though, I found out a weapon that we could craft, which was a tracking upgraded version of the Possessed Hatchet that explodes. I think that is all the information that you will need about this weapon. We headed to the dungeon yet again to build an arena for our next boss battle. Now I would show you the fight, but the footage just went missing, which is a real shame because the boss is actually a really interesting boss called the Poltergeist. It's basically like a buffed up Plantera that is also a ghost that is also just the coolest thing ever. After we defeated the boss, we were able to craft a new armor set called the Blood Flare armor, which is basically a literal novel to be read when discussing its stats. Basically, it's good armor that protect better.
Following the Poltergeist, we actually found out there was one more boss before we versed Big Grandpappy. We didn't have to defeat him, but I wanted to participate either way, and that is where we go over to the Acid Rain yet again. So after the Acid Rain, you are met with a brand new boss called the Old Duke,
Who is basically Duke Fistron on literal steroids. Luckily, without totally not breaking any sweats at all.
we defeated the boss. Speaking of the boss,
Remember those disciple bosses that we battled earlier? Well, time to battle their grandpappy.
editing me, cue the music!
Yet again, it is time to battle one of the most iconic bosses in Calamity Mod. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you
To the Devourer of Gods!
The fight starts off with the beast only having weak points on the head and the tail of its stripe. That's where you're going to have to shoot, or in my case, wave around my sword thingamajiggies. When you defeat the boss, you probably go, oh, that was pretty easy.
Never mind, that was only the first stage because Old Mate decides to summon the 3 disciples to battle you yet again. But only once you kill all 3 of these disciples again, you go up against the true version of the Devourer of Gods. And what a chunky boy he is. Johnny Sin's cock is literally jealous of this long worm.
As the fight goes on, you gotta bomb and weave and bomb. But in the end, we defeated the worm first try. By the way, did you know that this fight took over 10 actual whole minutes? That's right, 10 goddamn minutes to battle a giant space worm. But ladies and gentlemen, we still have 2 more bosses to defeat. To quote Doctor Strange,
We're in the end game now.
the first thing we're going to need is an item called Dragon's Forge. To get this, we need 2 more new items, these being Nightmare Fuel and Endothermic Energy. Both of these are dropped from the Pumpkin and Frost Moon, because after defeating the Devourer of Gods, these 2 events now just make everything way stronger than normal. No new mobs or anything, everything just gets buffed to the goddamn moon. So the first event I did was the Frost Moon, as I had to wait for the pumpkin seeds to grow to craft the pumpkin medallion. After finishing the event, we used a potion to try and gather all the items
That have been dropped. This potion is a new potion called the Ceaseless Void Potion.
or as I like to call it, the Big Sun. After all that, we were finally able to craft the Dragon's Fawn, and now the grand time of upgrades shall begin. The first thing we created was the Elemental Gauntlet, which is the final upgraded version of the Fire Gauntlet. Next was the new set of armor known as the Godslayer armor. This set does a lot of things, but yet again, I won't be reading them. All you need to know is that we are very strong, boy. We now have something called the Elysian Traces.
Same thing as last time, except you fly more and you fuck more.
The next item that was crafted was a new weapon, which basically we had to get something called the Biome Blade, which you can actually obtain pre-hard mode. And then this blade can be upgraded into something called the True Biome Blade, which then can be upgraded into something called the Omega Biome Blade, which then can be upgraded to something called the Galaxia.
The funniest thing is, this ain't even the final form.
Now, the final item that we did craft was something called the Sponge, which the crafting recipe for this thing can only be explained in a university lecture.
Just look at the goddamn bonuses it gives. Making this thing took so long.
But with this item, we were now able to stand a chance and go up against the second last boss of Calamity.
Yaron, the Dragon of the Jungle. If you remember at the beginning of Post Moonlord, we battled its infant version.
But instead of penises blocking our pathways,
This boy has goddamn fire tornadoes blocking us in. Not only that, but Yaron has the exact same attacks as other bosses.
including the diving and raw speed, also shooting the fire tornadoes at you this time at a low-key spawn similar to the Duke Fishron Waternadoes, but 20 times worse. Just shooting a constant volley of fire.
Basically what every other boss does. Also, he stole from Providence.
Yaron stole that, but also upped it by like 30 trillion. You survived the pure and raw power of this dragon's attacks. You realize that this was only phase 1. There is a second part. Now, what you're supposed to do after phase 1 is go and loot and do a buff version of the solar eclipse, like the pumpkin and the frost moon, and obtain a new crafting recipe, blah, 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 upgrade your items and materials. You know the story. But monkey brain me had another plan. Instead of doing all the upgrading armor and weapons, I said, screw it!
Let me summon Yaron phase 2.
But the thing is, we beat it. I beat Yaron phase 2 expert mode. Now, to summon phase 2, you gotta beat phase 1 yet again. But instead of going away at 10% HP, Yaron would regenerate, becoming the ultimate Big Bird. With Yaron defeated, we had only one more boss left to defeat.
Now, to prepare for it, I'm going to go over what we have instead of how we got it, because we'd literally be here for another half an hour if I did so. The first thing is our armor, which is now called the Auric Tesla armor. The next two items are accessories, the first being the upgraded version of the boot wings called the Celestial Traces, and the second being the Reaper Tooth necklace. Finally, the weapons. We have the Calamity upgraded version of the Vampire Knives, and our sword got its final upgrade called the Galaxia. And then finally, another sword called the Murasama, which can only be used after you kill Phase 2 Yaron. And I mean, can you blame the game? Look at those stats!
But finally, after all that grinding, after almost 40 hours of playing Calamity Expert Mode, it was finally time to battle the final boss. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you Supreme Calamitous. Start off the fight. You are trapped inside a box that you cannot escape. You sent a random volley of little balls that when touched will do unfathomable amount of damage. After dodging all of these, there will be around about 10 or so orbs that will spawn. 5 or so each side of the box, which you need to destroy so you can actually damage Calamitous. When the damage phase starts, that you will need to dodge all of the attacks whilst attacking her constantly. All the debuffs that she has applied to you in the previous fight are still with her and apply here. When you get her down to about 75% of her health, you will need to go into the ultimate dodge form, as projectiles from every direction will start spawning. Then it's time for damage phase yet again until about 50%, where you'll need to dodge yet again, except with this time more projectiles. And just when you think the dodging phase is over and the damage phase has begun, you think, oh, this is going well. It's just dodge damage. Boy, her grabby hands all spawned in, buffed out of their goddamn mind. Then even after you beat these grabby hands, it's damage phase yet again. By the way, did I mention that she has 8 million health points? Because she has 8 million health points. When you get her down to 30% HP, you've killed all the grabby hands, you've lowered her health again, you will enter a dodge phase yet again. But when you exit it, you think this will be a damage phase. Yes, but this time it has death moons that When you get her down to 20% HP, she goes immune yet again, but surround herself with mini hers that all are chunky monkeys that all needs to be destroyed so you can damage her again. After defeating those, you then get another little damage phase yet again until you get down to 10% HP when you are dodging everything under the goddamn sun to stay alive, trying not to die. Me almost being 100 HP. I was literally sweating. Another dodging phase spawned in yet again. She has one more trick up her sleeve. When she gets to 8% of her health, she will spawn in the death worm, which you cannot kill because you have to destroy the same goddamn orbs again from the start of the fight. But you have everything under the goddamn sun trying to hit you, losing all of my health yet again. But I was in the final damage phase. Nothing else was going to be in my way. The only thing I needed to damage was her, and our health kept going down as did hers. But we got down to 1 HP because I was not going to die to this giant vagina. Defeat us, and yes! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we had defeated the Terraria Calamity Expert Mode. And to celebrate, well, we just crafted this pickaxe, and I mean, just look at this thing.
Thank you so much for watching and actually making it to the end of this video. It took a while to make, so I really do appreciate that you made it to the end of this video. So let me know what you thought and also what game I should completely cover next, which leads me to the special announcement. I'm currently streaming over on Twitch Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, and I thought maybe I could have these big videos on my channel where I just cover an entire game, or like this mod, which basically is an entire game, let's be honest here. So yeah, go follow the Twitch to go watch me play it and help me out with funnies. I'm gonna go have a staring contest with my Amogus again.